Hi, everyone, and welcome. You're listening to the Astrology Circle podcast. I'm Samantha Hammer, and I'm joined today with my co host, James. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing very well. Today, we are talking about the eighth house. Take it away, James.
So the eighth house is a dark house. It's adverse from the ascendant, which basically means that if you look straight ahead, there's a blind spot. If you look to the left, there's a blind spot. If you look to the right, there's a blind spot. Anything that's adverse to a house is considered dark from the perspective of the house. In this case, when we're looking at the birth chart, it's the eighth, the 12th, the second, no, yeah, the second and
Second
the
and the sixth.
sixth. Um, and what we're talking about, the main signification of the eighth house is often given to others' resources. And what's interesting about that is that the eighth house is opposite of our internal resources, which is the second house. So, second house would be like our money, and the eighth house would be others' money. So, other people's money would be debt, taxes owed, potentially inheritance that you would gain. But the main quality of the eighth house is that others' resources. And the dark quality is tangible, even if it's an earth sign that's in the eighth house. It's the unseen realm of what is held by others through the seventh house. And
Hmm.
what I love about that is you start to incorporate things like intimacy and death as a component of what life is or what your attachment to a person's life is and what quality that brings to your life, depending on the plants and the signs. And the overall quality of the eighth being something that, if you have planets there or if it's a major emphasis, plays a role in others within your own life, which I think is really interesting.
It's such a packed house, signification wise, and you did a really great job of just laying out the general vibe and overview of these significations because it is such a taboo house. I think that is literally one of the significations for it because it kind of is shadowy. We can't see it from our ascendant point. And yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's one of those things that when you talk to people about that particular area of life, it's very touchy.
yes.
In comparison to the 12th house is the area of our life where it's almost like a dumping ground for everything that we don't really want to deal with. The eighth house is one of those things that is affecting us consistently that we can't seem to pinpoint or figure out without having to go past the conscious layer to look at things from a different perspective. It's a hard to access house.
Totally. And there's like a non deniability of it, like taxes and death. Like these things are certain when you have them wrapped up with another person. Typically, like in the 12th, you're fully able to stifle whatever you want there if you're that kind of person or what have you. Um, but with the eighth, like these things tend to just come knocking eventually. And so it's good to tend to the eighth house, pay your taxes, do the things. But you mentioning how it is just the following house from the seventh, I think says a lot about this too.
Yeah, the taxes and the debt owed is a massive role, especially with ancient authors. They
Mm-hmm.
really emphasize the fact that the eighth house is the money you owe to people
Yeah,
and the things that might be owed to you to some extent, or what your expression of that and how you relate to that is a big signification of the eighth. But yeah, there's something that is definitely a part of our life is what's the expression? Debt, taxes, and what was the other
the
one?
only things that are certain are death and
Yeah.
taxes or
Yeah,
something.
essentially,
Yeah,
yeah. And eighth house is a massive reason that is. It's the core reason um, for the taxes. You look
yeah, all
directly
of
at
it.
the eighth house.
Yeah,
So something I want to talk about too with the eighth is um, intimacy is
yeah,
something that isn't seen, but it's felt, especially if you have a water house ruling the eighth, or if you have, say, like the moon in the eighth, or if your ruler of the eighth is in a water sign, the feeling that the eighth would bring would be an attachment to what others have or the expression of how the eighth relates would be an emotional quality.
Hmm.
If it's an earth sign that rules it, or same similarities that I mentioned, with the ruler being an earth sign, then there might be more of a material quality to what that eighth house would bring. And the general overview of the eighth when it comes to things like intimacy or the attachment to others is how that mindset was created, which is
Yeah,
it's such a hard thing for people to grasp.
it is. I mean, it's like I think as long as we're trying to cut to the core of the eighth, it just goes deeper and darker at times. It's one of those houses that just it's innately mysterious. However, it is ultimately to me what you're exchanging energy in. You and because you can't exchange energy unless it's with another. And I think the planetary, what did Valens call this? This was that's not the bad spirit. Was
Oh,
it? That's
the
the
is it
12th.
the daimon?
The
No,
dark place, the dark
that
place
place.
is, and like that's just so perfect. And it's like private matters. It's sexy, it's elusive, it's all these things. And as a person with it in Pisces, the eighth house is Pisces for me. I have the ruler of it in the second in an earth sign. Everything you've already just said about like how they can manifest, I totally relate to on a on a level.
Yeah. Yeah, the I have Cancer eighth and the ruler's an air sign. So there's this detached quality of wanting to feel connected with someone emotionally, with others' resources, but with that expression showing up in a Saturnian sign of Aquarius in the third, it's like, how do I access that? Oh, I have to like talk to myself about the word about what it is I want. I have to relate to people differently. It's 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 a difficult for the individual to experience or discuss that dark place
Hmm.
within your own life. So I want to kind of break it down for people to
Yeah.
give like a simple overview of how you can do this. So with the eighth house, what we're thinking about is first considering what it is that you gain through others through childhood or your environment or whatever it might be, and how that affects your life. So if you have a planet in the eighth, let's just say you have Mars in the eighth house, in let's just say Aries. So it's a pretty strong.
Yeah.
That would mean that there's an intensity around what you gained throughout your life. This could be like literally, most often not, it would be resources being provided to you.
Maybe fought for even
Right,
at
or even
times.
fought for.
Yeah.
Right. That's a great delineation. So you had to fight for things externally to be received through you, and you got them. So, or you got them through some type of, fire quality, whatever the
Yeah.
general signification.
Creation. Yeah. Any of our fire terminology can be
Right.
applied. Yeah.
So knowing that you have this external quality affecting your life, what happens is you start to build a framework of your life where your expectancy with the other has that feeling of that Mars and Aries. You start to be a little more aggressive when you don't get something and you have to fight for it and you have to get it. So, and you might look externally to say, well, what does this person have that I want? That quality of like the warrior mindset, like, let me take what's yours and give it to myself. And that was framed because you have this mentality that was created or that was given to you that what I have, externally must be mine.
Yeah.
Using that in all different areas of your life can help really start to break down the intricacies of how the eighth house is affecting you.
Totally. And you just saying that reminded me of just, or not reminded me, but just is making me think of how when we look at oppositions in general, there's usually a similar goal in mind, but there is a differentiation on wanting different outcomes by the signs that are like ruling the oppositions. And then so it's like, what can we come into an agreement about? That's a huge part of reading the eighth and the second. What do I value? What do I want? Okay. And then like you're always going to be met with external circumstances. And the eighth is really how you can gain or lose stuff in the second as well. And yeah, so like I said earlier, the taboo quality of the eighth, these things are sex, mysticism, occult, the dark arts, I like to say overall. What do you think? Do you
Yeah, so all of that's really interesting because we're still dealing with external outside of ourselves. So there's a perception of attachment or whatever quality it might be that is beyond our ascendant, our first house, or of
Hmm.
ourselves. And what often happens, especially when you have a lot of eighth house placements, particularly, water signs would be a good one just to jump off of intuitively, is that you're dealing with the psychic realm. You're dealing with so because your mind is focused on external resources and what's outside of yourself consistently, what happens is that your sensitivity to perception psychically starts to enhance because what you're doing is you're welcoming in anything externally to come inward. So the upper part of the chart is, external and the bottom half is internal to keep it very simple.
Yeah.
And when you're focused on that externality of the eighth, of what qualities are out there that can be gained internally, you start to pick up things that might be in your best interest or usually not in your best interest when you're dealing with, dark places.
God, that's such a good point. I never really thought of it like that in this eighth house circumstance, but that is so interesting. Like,
Yeah.
sincerely.
Yeah, if you have air signs there too, we're talking about like communicating with potentially beings or communicating, channeling or telepathic communication of just like picking up on things very quickly, especially if it's like Gemini, Mercury in the eighth, with like Jupiter or something like that. You're going to receive a lot of information externally that would be overwhelming from the other person. And this could also show up in like the practical way this would show up is like a lot of contracts with people. You'd be in a lot of
Mhm.
contractual relationships. There's a lot of like obvious physical manifestations that the eighth house brings, but the quality of all the houses is because we're living in a multi-dimensional
Mhm.
space. You have to consider some of the things like intimacy, which isn't a physical thing, but it's physically experienced.
Totally. It's an exchange of energy. And honestly, I've heard this house be referred to as prices and power. And what you're kind of saying is an interesting bend to that because of this energetic quality that it can have, the eighth, depending on like, you know, the sign and ruler or what have you. I mean, it is an energetic place, but it'll be more sensitive depending on what the condition of it is like. But so prices and power of that like psychic component that you're even talking about, like how you can either harness that or you don't have to, but yeah, just an interesting concept.
Yeah, power is a big component. A lot of people, like modern astrologers, they love to give Pluto the eighth house,
Yeah.
and Scorpio the eighth house, and that's neither here nor there for this discussion. But there is something to be said about having eighth house placements and having an affinity for what power can bring to you, what power you can give to others. There is a big dynamic, especially in the modern world with the financial system.
Yeah.
Reading charts for people, I've noticed with the eighth house, really like two core two core sides of the eighth, which is one is the financial side, where it's either you're receiving a lot or you're giving a lot to people for the sake of, power or some
Gain.
type of,
Yeah. Yeah.
manipulation of some sort. And then the other hand, I've seen a lot of people with adding onto the psychic component where, I'm talking like maybe a dozen people off the top of my head that have this quality of being able to tap into something external. So there's something to be said about the power dynamics and what the feeling of power even brings to the person, you know?
Totally. God, that's such a good point. Yeah. I'm like envisioning like these like Venn diagram of like
Yeah.
physical and like emotional and like the eighth house and like all these different like themes that can go in there. Um yeah, that's amazing. I have a dozen eighth house good example charts, but one of my favorites is it's a girlfriend of mine who has the sun in the seventh, but everything else in the eighth, basically. And so much of her life is she manages other people's property for a living, like
Um,
at large. She's like a manager of other people's resources, to the money, to the houses, to like the staff, everything. And so you see stuff like that, but then all of a sudden you can, or not all of a sudden, but you can also see like energy workers and dealing with that in that regard of, attributes and an ability to do so.
yeah. And the eighth house, it's really interesting because using your friend as an example, to live in the experience of your life being essentially not run or dictated, but a major role of your life being what is going on outside of the sense of self. That can be a struggle. That can be
Yeah.
identity crisis. That can
Yes.
be a lot of confusion about who you are and what your place is in the world, which speaks to the dark house of the eighth's struggle,
Yeah.
those planets having it. It takes a while for people to even get to the position, and I'm maybe there's a chance that that was given to her even with the eighth house. Is that fair to say, or does she have to like,
It was definitely because of certain relationships that she just had. Yeah.
okay, so yeah, that the sun and the seven.
Yeah. And I was gonna say too, just really quick, I always have the greatest time during eighth house perfection years. I know some other people might not have this, but mine's Jupiter ruled. Mine
Mm.
are always great. I went to France last year
That's
during my, or it's almost 2 years ago now. Gosh, time flies. But like a whole like expenses paid trip from like a family member. It was like a family trip, but still I didn't have to like spend any money and it was all like given to me like
right.
by
Yeah.
someone else. It's just funny. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going through my ascendant ruler, Jupiter's exalted right now in my eighth. And
Ooh.
after my engagement, it's like everyone wants to help. And I'm not used to being
You're like,
helped
wait,
with the,
what?
yeah, I'm not
Other
used
people
to,
helping?
right. I'm not used to it. And especially because, like I mentioned earlier, my moon, it's a Cancer eighth with the moon in the third in Aquarius. So it's Saturnian and it's balsamic. So it's like, I'm not getting any help from anybody.
You're on
And,
your own.
right. And now with Jupiter there, it's like, oh, this is great. I can actually experience it. So, yeah, Pisces in eighth. Was it like when you went to France? Was it like a spiritual experience for you? Like, what was Pisces quality was there?
Dude, it was insane. When we landed, I started getting visions, like in the cab
Oh,
ride from the airport to the hotel. I started having I'm not someone who like talks like that. I was getting freaking like downloads to my
wow.
brain. And it's like maybe there's a lot to say there. That'll be in the next episode
Okay.
with our astrology stories
Right.
for that's a doozy of a one.
Link
But
link down
seriously,
below.
that
Link down below.
yeah, link down below exactly. And so oh, what was I gonna say? You go if you have
Okay.
anything else.
Oh yeah. Something I guess like a good point to make is when you're in an eighth house perfection year. So perfection year is basically, to make it super simple, is
Yeah,
the
thanks.
year that you're born, each year, excuse me, the year, your age, uh, gives, let me rephrase
I
this.
I
Go
can
ahead. Yeah,
start it.
Sam did
Okay.
the experiment.
May I?
Yes, please. Please, you're way better.
So when you're born, think so if you think of your natal chart, when you're born, you enter into zero, right? It's the zero that always messes me up. So you go in, and then when you turn 1 years old, then you hit your first house perfection. And so then so you track along the wheel.
Right. So the first house would be 0 to 1.
Yes,
Second house would be 1 to 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
exactly.
And
We
when
will put a
Sam,
diagram down below as well.
yes, we'll do that. Well, actually, maybe we'll show it on the screen right
Yeah,
now.
there we go.
We just pop it up.
Yeah.
So when you're in an eighth house perfection year, you would be 31.
Yes.
Right, because yeah, you'd be 31. So each year, depending on your chart, would have a different flavor of experience based on your own personal birth chart. So when you're in eighth house perfection, it's dealing with resources that are outside of yourself. And you were able to utilize that with the Jupiter. That's really nice. Yeah.
And also, what's so funny about it too is that the woman was my grandma who like initiated this like trip. She's a Pisces, of course,
Oh, wow. Wow. You have
with a
Jupiter
Sag
in,
rising.
oh, wow. That's
It was
amazing.
too good.
Yeah, that's great.
Too good. And then also Jupiter was going through my 10th. It was amazing. So and like Jupiter will track with you because it's the year planet. It spends a sign, spends 1 year in each sign. And so I don't track with Jupiter, unfortunately. I know a couple people who do, and it's always pretty nice for those individuals. Every perfection year, I always think of Jupiter as this like cushion. If there is like a malefic ruled year,
Mhm.
Jupiter's there at least
Yeah.
managing it.
Yeah, my last malefic ruled year was last year, but I had Jupiter and Gemini during that time. So, it's not the worst, but not, you're still dealing with Jupiter, so it's good.
Totally. And it's honestly perfections, just really quick shout out to perfections. They are the coolest technique to me because of you don't need your birth chart if you know what, I mean, it would be nice so you can see the rulers, but if you know you're 31, you know you're in an eighth house ruled year. And
Right.
so
It's the same for
obviously getting
everybody.
the signs of it all and stuff are going to help color that. But if you didn't have a birth time, they are a safe bet technique to use
Yeah.
for some things.
You have a couple examples.
I do. And I even have a like my most personal example is actually one I just thought of when you said contracts a little bit ago. Contracts that you don't sign are also in the eighth, and I got
Ooh.
ripped off majorly at my old day job. I photographed a book and I never signed a contract, like saying that I would get like credit or anything like that. And I literally was definitely let down to say the least. When
Mm.
I just went to my dismay, it hit Barnes and Noble and there was no mention of me at all for photographing it. My energy for someone else's project, not contractually bound.
Damn, that
and
is a crazy example. Where's your Jupiter?
in the second in Virgo.
Right, in
Yeah.
detriment. Okay. That's
Yeah.
insane. Yeah.
It was
Oh
funny.
man.
Yeah. It was literally so perfect. It was during my eighth house year too that I found out. It was
Mhm.
maybe 4 months into my eighth house year, perfection wise. So that was a bummer. That's like obviously a pretty negative one. I've also known people who finally get the loans on their houses. These
Mm.
are all things that do fall under the eighth house umbrella. And I know I said it earlier, but the second house opposing that, you have to spend money to make money. These sorts of things come up for me, like in a modern sense, to really grasp what the eighth house is. It's also like the gangster or mobster placement,
Mhm.
using other people to gain what you deserve, or I
That's a
don't
good
know.
point.
Yeah,
Yeah. And what's interesting is so the ruler of the eighth Jupiter is in the second Virgo. So the hope in the details that you had, you just it was almost as if you had to focus on things that you didn't really feel like you needed to because there's
I
trust
didn't.
there, there's hope there, there's that all those Jupiterian qualities of wanting the best. And because it's in detriment in the second, it's like, oh shit, like I fell for this, like what the fuck type of thing.
It was a lesson to say the least. And it was interesting because Jupiter, right, was transiting you would think my ninth because there's a major publishing thing that was going on for me, but it was my 10th. And so not feeling seen,
Mm,
because when you are doing perfections, it's really important to look at what the planet that's ruling the perfection year is doing in the chart, and it's Jupiter, right? It was in my 10th. It was also the year I got to start hosting Norwalk's virtual conference, like all other people's projects, but that were so exciting to me. But nothing like that happened with the Norwalk of it all, obviously. But yeah, there was
because
a
you learned your
trust thing.
lessons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was just so interesting, the manifestation of the ruler of the eighth and the second. So like not getting paid for it, having a trust there. The 10th being career, thinking that photography at that point was kind of my major career line. That definitely shattered after that. I just started picking a camera back up, and it was like so impersonal, but it felt so personal.
Mhm.
And maybe that's other things in the chart, but yeah, it can be a bummer when you don't know what to do, which also lends it like, confusion and hiddenness, like these things that can be under the surface and not visible to you becoming visible and rearing their ugly heads. And it's not always financial, but that is in a way an exchange of energy that was financial after a certain
Mhm.
point. I did not get paid for it. I got paid my day job wage
Right.
ultimately. So like I
Yeah.
got. It's honestly, I heard someone say, I want to say it was Austin Kopic, I think in one of our classes, he said the eighth house in Neptune, not to bring in the modern planets too deeply here, but he's like, it can be a way of how it'll, Neptune and plus the eighth are the ways you get duped in life. And I'm like, Jupiterian, like thinking everything was good, like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, we're in a flow. Like, no, you still have to check those boxes. You still have to get a little more businessy with the eighth to not lead to something unfavorable for you later.
Right.
Contracts, contracts, contracts. I never was a contract person until this, you know?
I think the eighth house, the main factor that you got out of that from my perspective, is the fact that the eighth house has contracts built into the qualities of the eighth, no matter what the sign or house, no matter what the sign or planet dictates in it. And for you, that Jupiterian quality, taking that into the contractual environment and seeing how that shows up in the chart, it was like, well, of course, like the details would be settled out, right? I trust this person. Nothing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, it's
sorry
a
to
great
interrupt you there.
example. It's a great example. Thank you. I'm like, this is so astro good.
Yeah.
Also, Pluto was transiting my sixth, but we won't get into that. So that was fun. Uh, but yeah, so like the eighth house is like, uh, there's just so much to say about it. It's like, what should we say? Like a swamp, unless you're tending to it
Hmm.
regularly.
I like that. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, part of the eighth is you're going to deal with flies,
Yeah.
but there's plenty of people who work in the swamps, and
Yeah.
they make a living working in the swamps and they're able to utilize the swamps to their benefit or whatever it might be. Something else that the swamp something else that swamps have are alligators, and
Mm.
alligators kill,
Yeah, they do.
which
Yes. Yes.
I
The
think it's
death of,
important that we talk about the eighth in terms of death because I feel like that signification gets so blown out of proportion nowadays that it's like, oh my God, I have, Saturn transing my eighth, what's going to happen? Or I have Pluto in my eighth, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to take away from the death that the eighth can bring.
yeah, I have many example about this as well. It is a real thing.
Right. It's a real thing, but it's not something that we should panic or get scared.
No, nothing like that. It's always like, yeah, I'll let you take it away. But Austin Coppock is always like, it's always just like a one-time thing, death. So you don't need to really concern yourself with it all the time.
Sure. And something else he says is that sometimes it might not even be death itself,
Mhm.
where it's a loss of what it is, but it might be the death of what it was to you. Like
Yes.
the death of a person can not be literal. It could be superficial. It could be something that you lost a connection with someone that you really cared for, and because of something that happened externally or what have you. And the quality of death speaks to uh, the other resources that I'm harping on because it's the attachment that you have to what the other has
Mhm.
that leads to that feeling of loss that death ultimately brings, whether it's physical.
Exactly. Well said.
Yeah. But yeah, there definitely is things that happen that I've noticed with people with eighth house placements where, especially malefics, where, there'll be death in the family or death of
Mhm.
friends or whatever the scenario might be, or even the gruesome quality of what the eighth house can bring. I know that there's a lot of people with eighth house placements that experience war or
Mhm.
experience hardships where the resources that were given to them were just suffering and pain. There's a lot of people that deal with a lot of internal struggle with eighth house due to the external environment that was given to them.
Yeah, definitely. And depending on where planets fall and what's ruling what, I've seen a lot of people who have to like come back and still suffer the other person's like suffering, even though they're not no longer here, like physically. But it can be really sad. It can be really hard. It could also just be simply like death of friendships and just like haunting of past circumstances. I've seen a lot. And yeah, it's an interesting little bit of the eighth house, the death component and the transformational qualities that reside there.
Yeah. Also psychologically, it
Yeah.
leads to a lot of spiraling. It can lead to everything with the eighth house, especially when there's a large emphasis. I know I keep harping on it, but there's a really big um, touchy component to the eighth where it could be a very trigger warning type of experiences, or it could be almost like, not to take this as a negative way, but almost like a victimhood mentality because with the eighth house, there's again this external feeling being impressed onto the internal experience. So, what happens when you're constantly externalizing your entire life? Well, you're going to be extra sensitive to what people say and how they say it. So, there's a
Yes.
very big um, press off button of this is my real experience and this is what I dealt with, and you can't talk about it type of thing.
There's like, would you say shame could be a major theme here?
Yes,
Yeah.
shame is a big component because what's happening with eighth house shame is that the inherent quality of the experience of shame is that there's a belief that, you're not worthy or you're not good enough or that you're just simply not able to exist and existing is even a
Mhm.
struggle. And that shame gets brought onto you. It's not a real soul experience. And yeah, it's
Fear and
unfortunate.
shame. Yeah, those are definitely just some big broad stroking things that can reside there, definitely. And I'd say not feeling good enough, like lack of confidence, but because of what you're taking from someone else, it's not you. Like a 12th house shame is very different, I'd say, and more internal, but very interesting.
Right. With the 12th house, you're talking about the experience of shame, especially when there's a 12th house emphasis, as you are the one that is putting yourself away. You're the one that is hiding. You're the one that's saying these things to yourself due to something that happened to you. Whereas the eighth house, it's as though your framework of the life that was brought onto you completely is like, I literally am just hearing it from every angle, whether it's my parents or my friends or like my environment where I literally can't survive externally
Yeah.
because of, war. Eighth house is a lot to do with like cultures where or neighborhoods or what have you, where your literal environment around you could be impacting you, which leads again to like the feeling of victimhood and being unable to actually do something about it. But there is a real quality to the eighth house placements that bring, yeah, literally I can't go outside without a bomb, this fear of a bomb going off.
It's more material and like terrestrially bound. But then there's the psychic component because it's totally true too. It's a really interesting, cool taboo house, like we've been saying, or something,
Yeah, you're
almost.
you're you're experiencing material reality, but
Yeah.
the experience internally that the eighth house experiences are bringing to you materially is the eighth house quality of experience that, you
It's all
know,
energetically like based in this way too. So
right.
in a
Like if
weird.
someone's holding money over your head in the eighth house and they're saying like, if you don't do what we say, we're not going to give you money, your allowance, or we're
Yeah.
not going to pay your bills, and we're going to stop buying you things. The experience is like, oh, I have to be good enough for this person.
Yeah.
It's like
Damn.
when we're talking about the eighth house, like how can I actually connect to my placements in the eighth? How can I learn from that? How can I grow from that? It's knowing how I feel based on what others are given to me, which is everything that we're talking about. It could be people, it could be environment, it could be, it depends on the chart. But
Totally. And I think that just is again why prices and power, this is such a like use that in any of the like ways we're speaking about it. It is ultimately this like ground level catchphrase for the eighth in a way.
right.
Prices of energy, prices of, actual money, prices in emotion, yada yada, all the things.
Yeah, which the reason why the eighth house is dark is because, well, let me rephrase what I'm about to say. The eighth house brings a lot of qualities of uncomfortability
Mm-hmm.
that is inherent to, being a dark house. And so
Yeah.
and so, case in turn, when you owe someone money and they're coming out to get you, gangsta style,
Gangsta, Tony Soprano
yeah,
style.
they're going to it's going to make you feel uncomfortable. You're not going to feel great about owing money and having to enforce that of being able to get your money back that is owed to you
Yeah.
is an uncomfortable feeling. In your
Yeah.
example, it's like your expectations of what you were supposed to get, Jupiterian, were not given to you, and that leads to eighth house feelings.
Thank you for re-mentioning that. Also, like in that circumstance that I found myself in, I quit the next day when I found out the real unveilment of what had happened. I quit the next day. And to help me, said grandma took a little bit of pity on me and like gave me some money to help me find my way, just to make it a better transition. She was like, get out of there. Like it was like this like fairy godmother, grandmother moment of granting, and you could almost say an early inheritance. That's not what it was, but it was like a gift. So yeah, inheritance. There is a massive quality to inheritance here. It's almost one of those like terms that we almost maybe wouldn't even mention because it's talked about so much. It's a no-brainer, but I have seen time and time again very like anything ruling the eighth or what have you, just that it's so easily activated and associated with things attached to the eighth in people's charts.
Yeah, I know someone with Saturn in the eighth in Pisces actually. And
Hmm.
this person has, and there's a whole long backstory, but this
Yeah.
person essentially is feeling restricted in what they're able to receive inheritance wise.
Okay.
And the
Yeah.
ability to, and feeling as though they're deserving of that, even though like Jupiterian. Pisces, they think that this should be the way it is. Like, obviously, you would give me this stuff, but the Saturn quality is making you feel restricted and not
Yeah.
feeling as though you can't, which it's showing up manifested. It's showing up in the manifest as, yeah, like you have to work for the money that you're expecting from me. You know,
Like
as a,
from your elders, they need to
yeah,
find you worthy of it. Perfect.
exactly.
I know someone who has the ruler. So the eighth house is Taurus, so it's Libra rising, and it's Mars in Taurus in the eighth, opposed Pluto in Scorpio. This individual's grandma passed away, then their grandpa, but then their mom passed away within the same year. So there was like this lump of massive, not only financial inheritance, but the burden of having to take care of the business of the family that passed, like all the material goods that they had, and they were very like material people. So there was just a lot of stuff. It was a whole lifetime's worth of stuff that this person had to go through, and it was a lot. It was like psychological, Venus, I'm sorry, Mars being in detriment in a Taurus sign, in the sign of Taurus. It's like all these beautiful things that I have to kind of take, and I don't have room for it. Like it was such a like Pluto bang, like magnified version of the eighth. It was pretty gnarly.
Yeah. Earth house, Venus, Mars,
Yeah.
in detriment. Literally eighth house. What I feel like I enjoy Venusian
Mm-hmm.
is being burnt away and they can't actually do anything about it. Eighth
Yes.
house. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really, yeah, that's
It was
really
very on
interesting.
the nose. There, I could say more about it, and I probably will in a future episode. But it was just like the Pluto. I was always wondering at this chart. I'm like, where does the Pluto come into this second? She's not like super rich. Like she's
Mhm.
well off. Don't get me wrong, she's fine. But it was like, oh, here it is. It was that eighth house getting activated during her seventh house perfection, which is Mars ruled. Mars being in the eighth.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this we might as well make this a perfection
I
segment,
know.
which honestly, it's such a interesting way because how do we access the dark houses? We have to kind of like go through an extra layer to get there.
You have to like navigate them, and you
Yeah.
get that chance via perfection and knowing about them. I offer perfection readings because they are so interesting, and they can just give you so much information about the parts of yourself that you're really unaware of.
Mhm.
Why is this happening to me? What, all these questions.
Yeah, it's one of those things where there's a lot of questions about it. It's like for whatever, well, not for whatever reason, the actual reason why that astrologers or people who are getting into astrology, it's almost like a hot topic, the eighth house of like, oh, I want to learn about it, or really any of the dark houses because that just shows the natural portion of it of being hard to access.
It's hard to
Which,
access, therefore people take to the dark arts for a lot of the time to try and control it. I'm
yeah,
calling
no,
the
it's
astrology the dark arts.
right, or just anything occult or
Yeah.
anything that is taboo to some extent, things that people might not universally agree on,
Yes.
or
Tarot,
universally
all the
right,
things.
right,
Yeah.
all the things, and using that to access something beyond yourself.
That doesn't fall into that normal, like organized religion sense of the ninth and like life philosophy and things of this nature. It's a cool house when I start to think about it. I like the eighth.
Yeah, I love the eighth, but you know, like like when you're experiencing the eighth, um, it's really difficult. I mean, when I talk to people, they there's like this hopelessness of please help me. Like,
Yeah.
please help. So, what happens with the eighth house is that you start to actually, when you have all these placements, you start to expect the external life to affect the internal. So, it's hard to ground yourself and be like, yeah, let me take control of my life. Let me do something about these things. But the secret sauce kind of is to utilize your natural placements for your
Hmm.
benefit because you're going to wind up dealing with others' resources. It's
Yeah.
inevitable.
It's so true. If you are living in a place that's someone else's resources in one way or another, whether it be, a loan you have for the house you own, the apartment, what have you. Maybe it's your parents' house still. It's someone else's. You have to learn to get along with others in extremes and, and not so extremes, but it is an important skill to harness and one to be aware of if you can be.
Yeah. I had a chart maybe a year ago now where I believe it was like, I want to say it was like, whatever it was. I remember Venus was in the eighth, and then like the ruler of the seventh was there or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the person came to me asking about relationship issues and why they feel like they have to be like the perfect person for others, and that they want like the way out of it, and that they feel as though other people have this expectation on them of what they should be, and it's like she does it anyway. And it was really interesting because it spoke to like the relationship quality eighth, which is like a lot of, if you have like Venus in the eighth or if you have a personal planet in the eighth, you're going to give yourself up to others.
Yeah.
And that reaffirmation of being given to others and it
Yeah.
being your life is a struggle. It's hard. The
God,
soul doesn't
that's
like that.
yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, if you have one of the relational planets in the eighth or ruling the eighth, it's going to be a lot harder, I'd imagine, because it's something that is, yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah. And then if you have it ruled by like um one of the bigger planets like Saturn or um Jupiter, yeah, it's like kind of more esoteric maybe at
Mhm.
the end of the day. Like what is it really? I don't know.
Yeah. I know someone with a Jupiter, Saturn in the seventh, and it's Aquarius seventh. So eighth house is Pisces. So the eighth
No.
house ruler is in the seventh with Saturn,
Oh yeah, what am I saying? I'm sorry.
right? Am I
Yeah, no, you're
tripping?
right.
Yeah, Pisces
You're
eighth,
right.
yeah, seventh, seventh. And
It's a Leo rising chart.
yeah, yeah,
So sorry.
it's okay. And this person is like enamored with relationships. Like it's something that they can't access, and that makes them want it even more. And that Saturn
Yeah,
quality of trying to restrict that is, part of the life
that's
lesson. But
totally. That's actually exactly the placement of the chart that I mentioned earlier, but it's a um Scorpio seventh,
mm,
and then so Sag eighth. And like, yeah, the way they manifest is like
mm,
she has other people's things because of a relationship that she's been in long term. Just perfect.
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
The
So
company
yeah.
that she manages or whatever. So
So is there
uh
anything else?
sorry. I was gonna also say one more chart example that I have
Okay,
is
perfect.
it's just like one of those like funny charts because it's this individual, he has um Aries seventh with Mars there, but then eighth house Taurus with Venus there. Has never been in a long-term relationship, not even once. Like, really, I think his longest relationship is 6 months. And he's older than me. He's 30, I want to say he's 36.
Mm.
And so that's just like one of those like, oh, like relationships, are they a taboo game? That's what comes to mind. I'm not trying to hate or anything. It's just like I think relationships in life are a game for this person.
Yeah, or fear intimacy.
Fear of intimacy too, but says that he wants it, but does everything to do otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He
yeah,
wouldn't mind me
yeah.
saying that either.
Right. There's that quality of like, yeah, it's like stay away from me type of thing, but like I'm still gonna play the game. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, definitely. It's also like that exchange of energy is just so good with Venus there with
Right.
like whatever.
Yeah, you have the ability to charm with, yeah, there's like an attraction for others to pull on to what you're offering them. So they're
And he's the most generous human I've ever met too. Like he has a lot of stuff about the eighth, like stuff about inheritance and such, but like always trying to do good with it and trying to like just bring balance to the world, whether it's like donations or just helping you out if you need help, things of that nature.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting how even one quality of the eighth showing up like inheritance starts to affect, relationships in your
Oh
life.
yeah.
Isn't that interesting how everything just kind of ties into each other with the eighth house. It's such a void. Every time I picture
Yeah.
the eighth, I think of like a void that's just like all outside there. And what is it that you're pulling within it?
Just like shadow, but like an ebbing shadow, like
Exactly.
breathing.
Yeah, it's breathing.
Can be
Yeah.
ominous, could be cool. What are we talking about? Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think we pretty much nailed the eighth house, though. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to bring up? I feel like I'm missing a bunch of stuff because it's the eighth, but
I feel like we touched on a lot. I think we could do a ton of like deep dives into different qualities, but if I were someone with a lot of eighth house placements or any or one or whatever, I would have a much better understanding of what qualities are relevant to me and have a sense of like pathway to go beyond that. I think we could definitely do some more in the future. Um,
definitely.
if you have questions about
Yeah.
the eighth, why don't you drop a comment,
Yeah.
DM us something, or somehow get in touch with us. Our links are below, and we'll definitely do a video expanding on whatever area of the life,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love that. I would love people to like share examples, even if they know of ones that are pretty on the nose. Yeah.
Yeah. We encourage everyone to share their stories, like you said,
Yeah.
and to any insight or any type of expansion you want us to do, let us know. We're gonna be
Yeah.
involved.
I feel like the eighth house people are not going to want to share, but please,
True.
please,
Send us a DM. That's why I said that. If you want
we
to
will
message us
protect
privately.
your. Yeah. Oh, that's one last thing we can end on. I did get identity thefted, not in a eighth house year, but I got identity thefted and it wasn't resolved until I hit my eighth house year. Isn't that funny?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I have sun in the first. So like my literal identity, like me not being able to see that my, you
Wow.
know, it was so
An
perfect.
eighth house ruler is in the second, so it's adverse to the first. Also, it's
And the
on
reason
its
I
own.
found out was because I got a tax bill owing like $80,000 of like unclaimed taxes. I was like, what are we talking about? It was so perfect of an example. I can't believe I forgot to mention it, but I'm glad I got it in.
This just reminded me and motivated me to look at the people in my life that I know that had identity
Yeah.
theft multiple times. Actually, I know one person that had it multiple times over the course of a couple of years. So I'm definitely gonna, yeah, look into that. Oh, and I also know someone that dealt with some identity fraud when I was younger. Got into identity fraud
Really?
with some eighth house placements.
Can we
Yeah.
have him on the person on the podcast so they can
Yeah, I don't know about that part, but this
um
person definitely tried to like obtain what others have and use it for their advantage in the eighth. It was a malefic quality of the
there
eighth.
it is.
Wow.
Ooh, it was an Uber driver that tried to steal or who did successfully steal my identity for a time. And so they're still out there. If you ever get an Uber driver named Samantha Hammer, that's like terrible. It's not me. Please don't
Did you like
associate me
lose
with
your
that.
ID? Like, did your like wallet fall out or
I
something?
still don't know. I've never lost my ID once. Uh it must have been a breach of some kind. I think there
Mm.
was, funny enough, a huge data breach from Uber. And I never knew about it though, because why would I know about that really offhand? But there was like a huge like lawsuit and stuff that I had no idea I could have like gotten in on. But
Would you
we know
say,
a guy, we have a tax guy, thank God, and
yeah,
he took care of
good.
it.
You know an eighth house guy.
We do.
Would you say like this is just a rift, but do you think cyber attacks would be eighth house?
Yes, of
Right? Yeah,
course.
I think so
Yeah.
too. I think that's really
We live in
interesting.
a very heavy eighth house structure of reality nowadays.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. That's really
I have a
interesting.
cybersecurity guy too, so don't come
Oh,
for
so
me.
you're locked up. No one's getting in there. Wow, one mistake during the eighth house year, and you're fucking
You
putting
see
up
a
a
bill for
vault.
80 grand in your mailbox as
That's
you're
true.
working a 9 to 5. You're going, what the
That's true.
got to keep it tight. That's all I have to say about your eighth house topics.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
All
with
right.
that, I hope everyone does their taxes this year. Do them well, do them honest. And James, thank you for joining us. Where can we find more about you?
At James underscore Pipitone on Instagram or jamespipitone.com if you want to book a reading. And what about you, Sam?
I am most readily available at samanthahammerastrology.com. I'm a Samantha Hammer Astrology on basically everything. You'll be able to find me if I'm there. And we'll leave links down below for everything. But we'll see you
Yes. And
next
you can follow the podcast at Astro Circle Podcast.
Yes, we'll leave
On Instagram.
links. We're still
Yeah.
like, we don't want to say anything wrong. We'll leave links. Check it out.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you,
Thanks.
Sam.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.